Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no copay. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you.
Discover a new path to wellness at Arizona Metabolic Health. Dr. Brian Lenzkes offers advanced medicine and personalized care, treating the root causes of your health concerns, not just the symptoms. Whether you're seeking direct primary care, effective diabetes management, or medical weight loss, with a holistic approach, our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Visit ArizonaMetabolicHealth.com today to learn more about our innovative health solutions.
Okay, everyone, September, kids, time to go back to school. Sorry, adults, parents, you get a little break for a little while, but still be involved in school. That's life's best medicine. Seeing your kids be successful and have a great time and have memories that they'll never forget. So be part of that. So September is the month. It's our preparation for October, November, December, where we really struggle. So hopefully this podcast helps you. Again, we got Health Code as our sponsor. They're doing great work, and love the company, love the people. Health Code, it's Get Health, GETHLTH.com. We have a discount code with them called MedHealth, METHEALTH, for metabolic health. And again, chocolate macadamia, vanilla, great stuff. And we just thank you for their continued support of the podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. My guest today does not need an introduction, but I will tell you: diabetes code, diabetes code, obesity code, cancer code, like the code for everything. And he has a new book coming out that I can't wait to hear about. The Master of Fasting. Everyone who comes to me goes, "Are you gonna make me fast?" I'm like, "Well, we'll talk about it and see what happens." Jason Fung, man, a huge influence on me. Everyone knows that. Anyone who listens to the podcast, we talk about him all the time. Whenever I have new pages coming, I'll go, "Who influenced you?" And they go, "Jason Fung." I'm like, "Geez, man, this guy from Canada is reaching everyone." So, Jason, welcome, man. It's so great to have you.
Yeah, so great to see you again. It's great to be here.
And again, thank you. I want to let people know too, this behind the scenes a little bit. My mom passed away in June, and Jason reached out to me, was so kind, and so no, I really appreciate that because I know you're busy, you got a lot going on, and it was very kind of you to take the time to reach out. So,
oh, no problem. It's always a big thing, as my parents are getting older too, so it's getting, we're all facing those sort of issues these days. So it's a tough one. It's always a tough one. No matter what,
yeah. And her legacy, she was a great lady and did a lot of good stuff and was very kind and decent. And so hopefully some of that rubbed off on me, so that we'll see what happens. So tell me about you, man. What do you got going on now?
Yeah, so I was just saying I was working on a new book. So it's sort of a follow-up to the obesity code, sort of. And it's basically to take things sort of one step further. It's going to be called the Hunger Code. So it's what a lot of us talk about, you, me, Tro, Jen Unwin, David Unwin, a lot of the guys that we see and talk about, realize that this whole calories in, calories out, just eat less sort of advice is really, really lacking. And the issue is not that people are overeating and therefore just need to eat less, right? It's really, why are they overeating? And that's the real key, right? So is it and if you ask people, why are you eating, right? And it's like, well, because I'm hungry. That's the problem, not that you're overeating. It's why you're overeating. Sort of like alcoholism, for example, right? It's all alcohol in, alcohol out, right? So, the advice, just drink less alcohol, should just cure everybody, right? Obviously not, because you have to go one step further and say, okay, you're drinking more alcohol than you can metabolize. That's why you're alcoholic and have cirrhosis of the liver, right? If I were just to say, just drink less alcohol, you'd be like, that's the stupidest advice in the whole world, right? Or if you're a cocaine addict, right? It's like, well, it's all about cocaine in, cocaine out, right? Just take less cocaine. That's the stupidest advice in the whole world. The reason that the people are drinking alcohol, for example, might be because they're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And they're taking it because they're sort of self-medicating that PTSD. And therefore, that's why they're drinking more alcohol in than they can metabolize. The question is not that they are drinking more. The question is why they're drinking more. So once you recognize that, hey, they have depression or PTSD or whatever, then you can say, okay, let's see how we can treat it. Maybe we need counseling. Maybe we need grief, counseling. Maybe we need meditation. Maybe we need medications, whatever it is. If you treat the depression, if you treat the PTSD, then all of a sudden they don't need to take that alcohol or cocaine. The reason you're taking it is because you're trapped in this drug culture and all your friends are drug addicts and you're an addict and stuff, right? So you have to break that addiction. It's not simply saying, cocaine in, cocaine out. But when it comes to food, we sort of completely lose this idea of why is it that calories in are greater than calories out, right? That's the whole problem. And our friend Tro has talked about this a lot, right? He says he was a food addict, right? That was his whole problem. He was addicted to food. That's why he couldn't stop. And the advice just to, eat less was ridiculous because it's like telling an addict, just take less heroin, you'll be fine, right? And then as soon as somebody challenges that advice, you say, well, it's all science, it's all heroin in, heroin out, right? And Tro just had a nice paper actually that he published about treatment of food addiction, and I think Jen Unwin also had a recent paper about food addiction. And what you have to realize is that it's such an important question that nobody asks, because as soon as you start getting away from calories, people start screaming at you, and it's like, oh, that's so unscientific. It's heroin in, heroin out. It's alcohol in, alcohol out, right? You don't hear that because it's stupid. But when it's calories in, calories out, oh, it's the height of scientific certainty, right? It's like so stupid.
Well, it's an
So
amazing you're saying that, Jason, too, because I remember I'll never forget this. I had a patient, she was struggling with binge eating disorder. Chocolate was her thing. She would eat tons of like she starts eating chocolate. She was like, I can't stop once I start eating chocolate. So we're talking about, I say, if that's like if I'm an alcoholic, I just don't drink any alcohol. Like if I know I can't stop after the first drink, then I just don't drink. So have you ever thought
yeah,
about giving up chocolate and trying something else to fill that need in your life? her her dietitian called me, and like I didn't even know the lady. She starts screaming at me right as soon as I pick up the phone. I'm holding the phone like this, and she's screaming at me. And I just asked her that. I that same question. I said, well, if you have an alcoholic, do you tell him to drink a little? Because she said if you tell her not to drink chocolate, all she's gonna think about is chocolate. I'm like, all she thinks about today is chocolate. That's all she thinks of. She lives for that. So you're
yeah,
telling me that I should tell my alcoholics to, drink in moderation so that they don't think about alcohol?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy. Doesn't make
It's
any sense.
insane because yeah, like I tell my drug addicts, just use cocaine in moderation too, It's like
Yeah.
that's so stupid. And the thing is that you have to recognize that addiction is treated differently than just everything else, right? So if you're an addict, then you need to abstain, right? Abstinence is the key. You can't say take a little bit of cocaine. Like everything in moderation is okay. Cocaine in moderation is okay. No, it's not okay. The minute you get that cocaine or heroin or alcohol or food, certain types of food, then you just go off the rails. So you have to stop. And that's the whole point, is that you have to treat an addiction like it's an addiction. You can't just say, oh, eat a little less chocolate, eat a little less, French fries. Because if people are addicted to this, then you have to treat it like an addiction, and every other addiction, cold turkey. You got to just stop. That's the only way you're going to get better, because when you take it, it fuels that hunger, right? It fuels that hunger for alcohol, it fuels the hunger for cocaine, and for food, it fuels that hunger for more of that food. And that's the whole point. And in the book, I talk about a concept in logic called the three whys, right? So it's if you have a question, you have to ask why 3 times so that you'll get to sort of the underlying cause. So, for example, if you were to say to somebody, a child, why do I need to learn, the circumference of a circle? Why do I need to learn the capital of Uganda? You can say, why do I need to go to school, right? People ask that all the time, right?
Mhm.
Kids ask that. Why are you sending me to school? It's like, because you can learn stuff, right? That's a very simplistic answer, and it satisfies zero children, right? But if you're to say, okay, why do I have to go to school, right? And so you say, okay, that's the first why. And you say, so you can learn stuff. That's only the first why. The second why is, why do I have to learn stuff? Then you say, okay, well, then you can make more money, right? So you say, why do you have to go to school? That's the first why. Second why is so you can learn stuff. Why do you have to learn stuff? And so you can make more money. So now the child says, I need to go to school so I can make more money, get a good job, and make more money later. But you've had to go into that sort of why question 3 times in order to get an answer that actually makes sense. And any child can understand, I go to school now, learn stuff, get a good job, make more money, have a better life, right? So, same thing with the Titanic. People will say, why did the Titanic sink? Now, if you're being simplistic, you say, because it hit an iceberg. And that's only the first why. So if you were to stop
Mhm.
there and say why, right? Then you'd say the advice to all future captains is don't hit icebergs. Okay, well, that's really stupid advice. That's not good advice. So you have to say, why did it sink, right? And it's like, well, because it developed a big hole. Why did it develop a big hole? Well, because it hit an iceberg. Why did it hit the iceberg? Because it was going too fast, right? And that's the real answer. You need to slow down. The captain was going way too fast, and therefore it couldn't see the iceberg, it couldn't avoid the iceberg, and when it hit, it tore a big hole. So the advice is to slow down. And that is what's going to save the ship in the future, not the advice to don't hit icebergs, right? And that's where this whole calorie thing comes in, right? People say, why am I getting fat? Well, it's because calories in is greater than calories out. Yes, that is true. That's not the answer. That's the don't hit icebergs advice, right? And then people wonder why that advice is so horrible. It's because the don't hit icebergs or the because you can learn stuff is the answer that is at the most simplistic, most superficial, and least useful sort of level. It's the alcohol in, alcohol out, right? Just drink less alcohol. It's like, why are they drinking more alcohol, right? PTSD, depression, whatever. In terms of calories, you say, why is the calories in greater than calories out? And then it comes down to because they're hungry. Then it turns out that there's actually multiple levels of hunger, right? And you have to talk about sort of 3 major types of hunger, right? And people never talk about this because it's like there's the homeostatic hunger. If you look at the literature, there's actually the homeostatic hunger, which in homeostasis is this process where if you perturb a system, then it's going to move back to what it was. So think about a thermostat. If you open the door and all your air conditioning goes out the window, well, then the thermostat senses that the room is getting too warm and it turns up the AC, right? That's a homeostatic system. So homeostasis is this process where the body can regulate its body fat percentage, right? Because everybody says, well, it's calories in, calories out. You just dump the extra calories into fat like doorknobs in a sack. It's like, no, that fat percentage is a very tightly controlled thing because it's important because if you think about survival, animals who get too fat, they can't, run after prey and they can't avoid predators. So, how much body fat you carry is very important. You don't see morbid obesity even when there's a lot of food, right? If you have a plague of locusts, you don't get a couple giant morbidly obese locusts. You get millions and millions of locusts or rats. You don't get a couple of massive, super morbidly obese rats that can't move, right? You get a whole bunch of rats.
Or lions. I think
That's,
you use that example too. Lions don't just eat all the zebras there. They eat till they're
yeah,
full. They go, okay, I'm good. I don't have to kill them all. I'll save some for another day.
exactly. So you have to understand that the body has a similar homeostatic mechanism that tells us when to eat and when not to eat. So there's a system for raising body fat percentage. That's your hunger, right? When you get hungry, that's ghrelin, that's so on. It tells you to go higher. And there's a system to tell you to stop eating, and that's the satiety system. And these are all regulated by hormones. So if you think about it, if you say what causes weight gain, right? And you say, okay, well, calories in, calories out causes weight gain. Okay, well, what if you just pump somebody with insulin? They gain weight. Well, there's no calories in your insulin. So therefore, calories was not the root cause of your weight gain. What if you take away all that insulin, like untreated type 1 diabetes? Well, insulin, they lose weight until they die, right? Well, there's no calories. You didn't deprive them of calories, you deprived them of insulin. So the problem was not calories, the problem was insulin. You can do the same thing with cortisol. Cortisol, when you pump somebody full of cortisol, like with prednisone, they're going to gain weight. If you take away cortisol, like Addison's disease, they lose weight. You look at the sympathetic nervous system. So if you pump up the sympathetic nervous system, what happens? You lose weight. And we have so many drugs. And it's interesting because if you go back into the 80s and 90s, there's a whole bunch of drugs called anorexiants, which cause weight loss. So fen was I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I remember
Fen
that.
Phen.
Yeah.
Fen was actually super effective. It caused a lot of weight
Heart
loss.
issues and yeah, all
It
kinds
was
of
a
other
lot of
stuff.
heart issues
Yeah,
because it
that kind
went
of
off the
matters, right?
market. But how did it work? Fen, which was fenfluramine, phentermine, did not have calories. So calories was not the problem, right? It was that it pumped your sympathetic nervous system way up and it stopped you from eating. And everybody thinks, oh, pump your nervous system up. Well, it's burning energy, right? It's energy expenditure. No, these drugs were called anorexiants. That was the drug class that they were known as. Anorexiants. It causes anorexia. When you pump up your sympathetic nervous system, your hunger plummets. That's the reason nicotine causes weight loss, right? Why do smokers lose weight? Why? Because you're activating the sympathetic nervous system. What happens when you block the sympathetic nervous system? Beta blockers cause weight gain, right? What if you pump, serotonin, phentermine, worked on the serotonin system? What happens when you block these things? Like, you affect the serotonin system, like antidepressants. You gain weight. Like we know, it's well known that these drugs, like antidepressants, certain one of them, can cause significant weight gain. Why? There's no calories in those drugs. Those drugs have 0 calories, but you still gain weight. That's well known.
The
Spider,
antipsychotics.
the antipsychotics, same thing.
Yeah.
They're affecting the same brain pathways that affect weight. So if you know that these systems cause weight gain and weight loss, then why are we not focusing on these? Ozempic is a perfect example. So it affects the GLP-1, right? That's the way that it works. Well, GLP-1s, Ozempic has no calories. It doesn't take away calories. So why is it effective? Because it affects your satiety system, right? It's the hormones. It's always a hormone. So you say insulin affects weight, cortisol affects weight, thyroid, hypothyroid affects weight, sympathetic nervous system affects weight, serotonin system affects weight, GLP-1, GIP affects weight. Those are like 7 hormonal systems that we know right off the bat that are important for weight gain and weight loss. And yet we completely ignore the effect of hormones on the calories. So it's not that calories in isn't greater than calories out, but that's the superficial sort of don't hit iceberg sort of level of thinking. It's so shallow and superficial that it's so ineffective. And that's why it doesn't work for anybody. You got to get back to that lower level and what hormonal systems are affected because that's your homeostatic hunger. And that's really what I think is really important because if you don't understand that, and as doctors, we never got taught this, of course. If you don't understand that, then you're pounding away at the calories and wondering why you're not successful. It's like telling somebody over and over, just take less heroin, just take less heroin, just take less heroin. And when I wonder why this guy's still taking heroin. Like, because your advice was stupid, right? And it's the
Yeah.
same as calories. It's stupid advice. It's simplistic. It's
Well, it's
just
been the
so
same
stupid.
thing. That's the problem is everyone makes it simplistic. Like, oh, this Jason Fung guy, fasting, you eat less calories because you're fasting because you're not eating, you're losing weight that way. It's like, well, what about the effect on the hormone system, on the gut
Yeah.
microbiome, on everything else? So we look at that like, doing a 36, 40 hour fast has a huge impact on the gut microbiome diversity and how your gut is going
Yeah,
to
for sure.
digest the food you're eating, and satiety signals and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. I'm actually kind of curious. I just want to like, because I think this may cause a little confusion. One of the biggest things Tro and I talk about a lot is that we see people are doing great, and then all of a sudden they go through a life stress. Their husband leaves them, they get fired from their job, and they all of a sudden they gain weight. So are you saying that when their sympathetic nervous system gets fired up, they're saying, I'm going to eat more to make me feel better, to calm my system
Oh,
down?
no, no, that's that's a great question because that's homeostatic hunger. So this hormonal system is all homeostatic hunger. We actually haven't even touched on the other two
The
types of
emotion. Okay, yeah,
hunger,
yeah, exactly. Okay,
which
great.
is the hedonic hunger. So there's three types of hunger: homeostatic hunger, hedonic hunger, and conditioned hunger. So homeostatic hunger is all about the hormonal system, right? So that's not the where, oh, I broke up with my girlfriend, boyfriend, and I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream, right? That's not homeostatic, right? You're going
Exactly,
over the
exactly.
homeostatic. The second really important type of hunger. So, one, the homeostatic hunger part has been completely not understood. So fasting actually has multiple huge effects. So one is that ghrelin starts to go down, so hunger hormone, insulin starts to go down, and sympathetic tone goes way up. So of course, your insulin going down is going to sort of tell your body to store less body fat. The sympathetic tone going up is going to reduce your hunger as you do it more, and then the ghrelin goes down, which means it reduces your hunger. And that's why people do these like 5-day fasts and so on. So I'll just say, I've been doing more and more of these. Before we get to the hedonic hunger, I'll just say at the fasting method, we actually started these group fasts, which we do a 5-day modified fast. So not a full fast, because it looks like you can get most of the benefits of the fasting, but still take a few hundred calories at a time, which makes it actually a lot easier because it affects that affects your sort of the food thoughts and stuff. So it affects the
Mm.
hedonic hunger. But I'll tell you a story just with a 5-day fast, these modified fasts. One, it's a lot easier when you do it in a group. But the reason I did it was that I had this terrible Achilles tendonitis, like for like a year. I couldn't run. I played basketball, and the next day, no, the next 2 or 3 days, I was like walking like like it was like terrible. So anyway, so I put ice on it, I put heat on it, I did ultrasound, I went to the physiotherapist and all this stuff. And I thought, oh man, this is not getting better. So I do fasting, but I do mostly shorter fasting. And but then one of my friends, he says, I do these fasts for tennis elbow, and it really improved it a lot. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do this longer fast because these 5-day fasts, you can really pump up your growth hormone. So if you look at these studies, like you get a lot more, like you might go 1.5 times, 2 times growth hormone with 24, 36 hours, but you go up to like 5 or 6 times when you go to 5 days. So he said, okay, I think that really helped a lot. So I said, okay, well, I have nothing to lose, right? So I'll do a 5-day fast. And so I did the 5-day fast, and it's like, man, it was like 70% better. And it took honestly until like day 4 to really start to feel that sort of anti-inflammatory effect of the fasting. And it was crazy. I was like stunned because I had done everything that I could think of for this Achilles tendonitis, and it just wasn't budging, right? And the whole thing was that I thought, okay, well, maybe it's all a coincidence, right? Maybe it's just like, whatever, right? I thought it would work, so it worked. So then I think the next month or 2 months after, I said, I'm going to do it again. So I still had it. It's better, but so I did again. And it's like, God, like after the second one, it was like another 80% better, right? And then by the time I did the third one, it went away completely. And I haven't had it since. So I'm like, that's insane. Like I could search everywhere, all the literature, in the world, right? Because it's pretty easy now with Google, on treatment of tendonitis. And I would find nothing about doing a 5-day modified fast like I did with like we do with the fasting method now. So we implemented that. We do this group fast. That's great.
So I'm just curious,
Um,
just as a quick aside, when you're doing like a 5-day fast, when you say modify, are you adding in protein or fat, or what are you
We
adding?
have a little bit of vegetables and stuff.
Okay.
So it's basically a low protein, sort of high fat, low carbs, but
All right. All
mostly
right.
like vegetables, bone broth, vegetables, because the bone
Mhm.
broth, and I think I talked to Tro about this before. He thinks the collagen is like super important. So in the healing. So bone broth, of course, is great because it's a pain in the ass to use, honestly, because to make it takes like, 20 hours or something because you got to get all that sort of nutrients from all those bones. So
Yeah.
I make bone broth and stuff, but it was like crazy. So you take a little bit because what I found when I did, and I've done the 5-day water fast. The problem is by day 3 or day 4, you're really starting. I was really starting to think a lot, like I was sort of starting to get a little bit obsessive. It's like, oh man, I can't wait for this to be over. I want to eat this and this. And once I add it, and I'm talking about like, once a day I'd have some broccoli, right? Like a
Yeah.
small little bit of broccoli and some bone broth, right? So, but it's enough to really knock it down my thoughts because again, the homeostatic hunger, I wasn't physically hungry. Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
hunger was
Right.
like zero.
Yeah.
But the hedonic hunger, the oh, I really want to eat that because it looks great was very high. So that sort of knocked it down. So and if you can get most of the benefits, because there's a ton of data now on these longer fasts. So both from the 5-2 diet, which is Michael Mosley's sort of diet. There's been several studies because his diet's been out for a while, and also the fasting. The fasting mimicking is also a modified fast. Both of them have produced a lot of good data showing that hey, even if you take a little bit, you probably preserve all the benefits, but since you're going longer, like 5 days, you're getting those. So anyway, that was the story on that, and so that's one of the things that is that's the hedonic the homeostatic hunger, but that doesn't touch the hedonic hunger. So the other thing is that food makes us feel good. And you can't ignore that. When you start to get ultra processed foods, then what you start to get are these massive spikes in glucose. So instead of a natural food, even carbohydrates. So if you took like some beans or something. So carbohydrates, but beans, they're absorbed relatively slowly. So if you look at their glucose, it goes up, but not a lot, and then sort of goes down again.
It's like a mound rather than going straight up a mountain peak, like a tent,
Yeah,
like a
exactly. So if
TP.
you
Yeah.
yeah, if you look at something an ultra processed food like white bread, commercial white bread, it just spikes immediately, right? Your glycemic index is through the roof. You look at the glucose over time, it just spikes way up. And it also increases dopamine a lot. So dopamine and insulin actually are synergistic. They make you feel good. So we know that. That's why people eat these things, right? All these ultra processed foods have been engineered to make us feel good because that's what sells, right? They're not malicious, right? I don't have anything against them, but the way that our body processes them it's chewed like it dissolves practically in your mouth. You think about white bread or cheese puff, basically you don't even have to chew it basically dissolves in your mouth and it evades. So not only does it shoot up your dopamine, it shoots up your insulin, shoots up your blood glucose, but it creates very little satiety, right? So you talk about the satiety system, which again are hormonal, your GIP, cholecystokinin, peptide YY. All these are satiety hormones. You have to realize that when you eat food, not only do you get those calories, you stimulate certain hormones. So the hormones like insulin tell you if you should store it, but you also activate these satiety hormones that tell you when you should stop taking them, right? That includes peptide YY, cholecystokinin, GLP, GIP, and also stomach distension, which is mediated through the vagal nerve. So when you eat food, it will distend your stomach, and that sends a signal to your body to stop putting food in, right? So if you have somebody with a bezoar, which is, people who eat their hair and stuff, their stomach fills up with hair, and then they can't eat because they keep activating that satiety signaling that says they're full, they're full, they're full, but actually their stomach is just full of hair. So they actually can become quite sick. So the whole point is that when you have these ultra processed foods, they're sort of engineered to create these giant spikes. They're engineered so that they don't activate satiety, but because they're spiking up your dopamine and making you feel good, we call them comfort foods, right? So you eat them and you feel better, but it's all temporary. So when you get somebody who they're grieving or they're go through a rough time or they're under a lot of stress, they're like, hey, I'm going to eat this because I want to feel better. It's basically a form of self-medication, and it's rational. If you're feeling bad because you broke up with your girlfriend, boyfriend, and you decide you want to eat a tub of ice cream, that's a purely rational decision. You feel bad, so you eat that ice cream so you feel
You're
better. Yes,
escaping pain,
all
right?
exactly. It's
And the other
purely
point we
rational.
talked about it too, Jason, a long time ago, and I always mention this to people. It's like, have you ever been in the middle of a massage and you go, "I need to eat something right now. Stop the massage. I'm going to go eat something." Like you're being relaxed right now and you're enjoying it, so you go, "I don't need that." And I think that's part of the phenomenon that we all saw early on. We're like, "Oh, we're treating diabetes and people's moods getting better. Why?" And they're not binge eating as much. Why? A lot of it's hormonal, like you're talking about lowering the insulin level. Now you can get to your fat stores, those kind of things, but also so many couples would come in and go, "Honey, you don't react as strongly as you used to. You're more calm and you're more even, right? So you're not getting these
Yeah,
hypoglycemia and the all these rushes."
yeah, yeah,
And so if you're feeling better, then you don't need to turn to that food as much, that binge eating food, because you feel good. If you're enjoying your relationship, you're getting along with people, it's a lot different. But a lot of people, when they're going through stress, they're having conflict at work, they're having conflict with their husband or whatever, and it makes things so much harder.
yeah. And you have to realize that, hey, if you're eating because you're sad or depressed or anxious, just telling somebody to not eat doesn't work. It's like saying, don't worry and expecting people not to worry. Well, it doesn't work like that, right? So they are doing something which is purely rational. And the problem is that the ultra processed foods really feed into that because you can keep eating them, right? So say you really enjoy, sushi, sashimi. So I love sushi, but you can't just keep eating it because at some point it will make you nauseated, right? It's like you go to the all you can eat buffet and you say, "Oh, you're so full," and have another pork chop. It's like, no, I'm gonna throw up, right? But then somebody says, "Have some ice cream." You're like, "Sure," right?
Yeah,
Because the ice
yeah.
cream has no satiety. Or here, drink a little bit of cola, right? Cola has a ton of sugar in there for calories, and it might be the same number of calories as the pork chop, but they're very different in terms of
Mhm.
the satiety signaling. So therefore, after you've eaten all that, yes, you can take that soda, you can take that alcohol or whatever, but you can't eat that pork chop. Why? Because the pork chop has the satiety signaling. So food contains both your calories, but the information of what to do with those calories and also how you should respond. And
And the
by
dopamine hit you get from it too,
yeah,
right? Like you go, I just
exactly.
enjoy that feeling good
Yeah.
because,
Yeah. So you got to
yeah.
get to the root cause. So if you say these people are overeating, okay, got it. Why are they overeating? Because of their emotions, because they have, they're sad and therefore they're relying on these ultra processed foods to give them that big, quick dopamine hit so that they feel better. Now you can say, okay, well, I need to do something about this. What can I do for their sadness, depression, whatever? And then how can I move them away from these ultra processed foods so that they're not getting it? Because what happens is that you can now cross that line into addiction, right? And addiction is basically something that can you do something even though you know it's bad for you, right? So it's like smoking. People smoke because they're addicted. They know it's bad for them. It's not like they didn't know because everybody thinks it's just about knowledge. It's not about knowledge. It's about addiction, right? So it's like if you're addicted to cocaine, you know full well you're it's killing you, or alcohol. You know full well it's killing you. You just can't stop. And that happens to some people because of the way that the ultra processed foods sort of hijacks our whole system, right? It causes much more hedonic hunger. And it allows you, because it evades the satiety signaling, allows you to keep using it. You can't keep using natural food. So when people talk about, I'm addicted to this, I'm addicted to white bread, I'm addicted to carbs, I'm addicted to chocolate, I'm addicted to potato chips. Who says I'm addicted to beef? Right? Nobody. Right? I'm addicted to oranges. Oranges are sweet. I like oranges, but I'm not addicted to them in any way. And I never hear anybody say, I'm addicted to salmon. I like salmon. I'm addicted to cod. No, I don't think so. I'm addicted to shrimp. It's not like I will keep eating shrimp even though I know it's killing me, right? But
Yeah.
people will do that for potato chips, for ice cream, for they know they shouldn't be eating this because of their weight problem, but they can't stop. That's the hedonic hunger, right? So
And then
hedonic hunger,
that's the other part of it, Jason, too, is like someone's sugar's 400 and they're craving sugar all the time. You're like, that's the last thing you need is sugar, but you're craving it because
you're
all these other
craving
types of
it. You're
hunger that
craving it.
the
Exactly.
hedonic. Yeah.
The hedonic hunger is important because it crosses the line from homeostasis, which is just, that's your body system that should fix itself. The hedonic hunger is the emotional part and the addictive part. And the part that's like, why are you eating? Because you're sad, right? Not because you're hungry, because it's the emotional hunger, but it's the sadness, it's the depression, it's that. And if you don't recognize it and treat it, then you simply say to somebody, eat less, right? Just like somebody with post-traumatic stress disorder, you say, just drink less. Hey, I solved your problem. I solved world alcoholism. I just solved world drug addiction, Brian.
Yeah. Just have less of it and it'll be fine.
just take less heroin. Just take less cocaine. You can thank me later. It's like, what the hell? That's like the worst advice I've ever heard. But yet we think that, hey, just eat less is great advice. It's terrible advice. Like that's
And
why I'm
everything in
like,
moderation too, right? Like if you
everything
can't
in
moderate, you can't
moderation.
have everything in moderation.
Exactly, because you haven't recognized that you're moving into hedonic hunger and food addiction, and it's not a problem for everybody. Like there's so many things that can cause obesity. Obesity is a symptom of a problem, but it's not the problem itself, right? We treat it as if it's a problem itself, but it's actually a symptom of an underlying problem, whether it's an underlying problem with homeostatic hunger or whether it's a problem with hedonic hunger, that's a different story. And the third big category is conditioned hunger. And this is the environmental cues, because the whole thing is that we treat the whole narrative in medicine for obesity is that it's an individual decision. You decided to eat that, so it's your fault. But it actually completely, if you look at the evidence, it's completely not true. Why? Just look at, the geographic distribution. The people in the United States have very high levels of obesity compared to other parts of the world, say Japan. So Japan is a very prosperous first world modern nation, just like the United States, right? Their obesity rate is super low. So you might say, well, it's genetics. It's absolutely not genetics. You take those Japanese people and you move them to California, San Francisco, wherever. And what happens? In a generation, the obesity rate explodes. By the second generation, it's almost the same as a native born American. There's tons of data on this. If you take military families and move them into a county that has a high obesity rate, their rate of obesity goes up. If you have, and there's a great New England Journal article about this, if your best friend is overweight or obese, your own risk goes up by 171%. Like it's massive. Why? Because of the societal and social influence. It's basically what your friends do, what your family does, what your community does influences you because it sets the sort of norms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And it's a huge influence. Those Japanese people who moved to the United States, they don't stand a chance because the environment in the United States is what creates that obesity. Because if everybody around you is eating this, then you're going to eat that. If everybody around you is eating French fries instead of salad, you're eating French fries, right? If everybody around you is doing it, you look at the portion sizes, right? The portion sizes in the United States are massive, but you think it's normal because you grew up here, right? In Japan, the first generation, the people who live in Japan, they're like, that's too much. You can't eat that much. By the second generation, those Japanese Americans who have lived here for 2 generations, they're like, that's normal, right? So it makes just such a massive difference. So it's like, it's not that Japanese people have more willpower than Americans. I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody has as much willpower as Americans. I mean, you look at the hours they work, what they do, and yet, why do they have this? It's because of the social influence, which is this conditioned hunger. It's the environmental influence. Everywhere you look, it's all about the environmental influence. But you can compare the United States in 2025 to the United States in 1970, and there's almost no obesity there. What's the difference? The people are the same, the country is the same, everything is the same. But what's happened is that the environment has changed to allow the eating everywhere, to allow the ultra processed foods, to allow all of these things, the problems into our food system that take away from sort of natural processed foods to sort of we've sort of glorified these ultra processed foods. And I think honestly nothing exemplifies it more than the sort of plant-based meat, which is like, oh my God, like it's like a chemical experiment in there, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
it's incredible,
oh
man.
my God,
It's
it's
incredible. When you see the ingredients, you're
super,
like, are you doing this for health? If you're doing it for health, let's talk. If you're doing it
yeah.
for religious reasons or something else, then okay, well,
If
like
you
there's
have
other stuff
ethical
you can do.
reasons, yeah, like
Yeah, yeah. It's wild.
it's wild. Like it's crazy stuff. And you have to have so much processing in that. Like they couldn't even figure out how to do it in, 10 years ago. You need like this high level of technology to know how to process the hell out of plants to make it look and taste a little bit like meat, right? That's not good for you. Everything there is completely artificial, but it's okay because you live in America. Like over in some country, I can't remember where, somewhere in Europe, I think they like ban that stuff because it's like
Yeah,
that's an
Europe. Yeah.
abomination. Right? I'm like, yes, it's an abomination. Like I went to Italy the last year, and it's like, wow, everything's so natural here. Like the food is so natural. It's like, I had watermelon and it had all these seeds in it. And it's like, I haven't had seeded watermelons in a long time. It's like, and the Italians were like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's natural watermelons have seeds. And I'm like, yeah, I've been eating all this North American seedless because it's
Yeah, it's crazy. And
easy,
Jason, I
right?
see it all the time. People go on vacation and they lose weight. And it may be stress that their stress is low and they're walking more and all that kind of stuff. But man, when I see their CGMs and they're in Italy eating pasta, it's like you go to Olive Garden and you see go straight up and you go, wow,
Yeah,
that is pretty wild.
it's
Like the
wild.
the effect, yeah, it's amazing.
I think the other thing which you mentioned is the walking. I mean, you go to any of these cities, and it's like it's the environment, right? Because if you live in Tokyo, the average person, I think, gets 8,000 steps a day, which is about four kilometers, it's like 2.5 miles a day, every day, without even thinking about it. And that's because of the environment that you live. It's sort of like New York City, which I go to a lot because my kids are in New York City now. But you walk everywhere. Why? Because the traffic is horrible. And most of the time, it's as fast to walk as it is to take a car, and sometimes faster, right? Because it's just a horrible city to drive a car in. So you walk. And my kids go down there. When they get home, they don't walk like, they get like 200 steps a day. Like they're on the couch all day. They're on with their friends. They're seeing a movie. They get in the car, right? It's terrible. But they go to New York and all of a sudden they're walking like 8,000 steps and 9,000 steps every single day, right? And they didn't think about it. So it's not the person because it's the same person. But you move them from the suburbs of Toronto, where they get 300 steps a day, especially when they're in school, right? There was nothing going on. And then you get in your car to go anywhere to New York City, and it's the same person, but all of a sudden that environment has started moving you 8,000 steps a day. Like so Tokyo, I looked at the stats of Tokyo. They get like 8,000 steps a day, just every single day. Like I remember during the pandemic, I was I went out, but my wife was like 200 steps a day. And it's like we had to always go out on walks in order to get our some steps in because it was just a horrible,
Yeah, you're
horrible
walking
sort
around
of
inside your house. Yeah,
yeah. Or you go outside and
yeah,
you'd have to, I remember you'd walk outside and people would like jump out of the way, they to
yeah. They
cross
go on
the
the other side of the
street and
street,
stuff.
and they're
Yeah, it
like
was
away.
quite
Yeah,
quite
it
wild.
was
Like
it was nuts.
it was nuts. But the point is that it's not the individual. We keep talking about the individual, but we don't talk enough about the environment. It's the environment, right? It's not an individual thing. And I always say, think about it this way. Suppose you have a classroom of 100 kids and one kid fails. Maybe it's that kid's fault, right? They should have studied, they didn't study. What if 70 kids fail? Is it an individual failing of each and every child? Or is it a failing of the system? Maybe it's the curriculum, maybe it's the teacher, whatever it is, it's something it's systemic. Now, in the United States, we have about 70% of people obese or overweight. So is it an individual failing where we should keep berating them to eat less and move more? Eat less, move more, eat less, calories in, calories out, alcohol in, alcohol out, right? Or is it a systemic problem? Because if it's a systemic problem, then you need a systemic solution because you can't just keep berating people to eat less. And that's what we do. We berate them to eat less, eat less, eat less. But it was never their problem to begin with, right? It's like having a horrible curriculum so that all the kids fail and then say, study more, play less, right? It's like, and then when they don't, you like shame them or something. It's like crazy. It's a crazy system. Because when you even step back for a second and look at the evidence of the environmental influence, which is the conditioned hunger, right? So it's you get conditioned to to be hungry, to eat more, to do this, by the place that you live and the friends that you keep. Then you have to look at that, right? How is it that Italy, with their famous love of food and pasta, has such a low, low, low obesity rate? Well, part of it is the natural food, which gets to that hedonic hunger, the ultra processed foods, which really affects that sort of hedonic side of things. But it's also the environment that they live. Like they eat a little bit and then that's enough. That's one portion. But it's the people around you that give you that influence, right? It's not okay to eat everywhere you go in Japan, for example. You can't walk on the street and eat. It's not, I mean, you can, but it's really frowned upon. And so they don't do it, right? So that's the whole point. So, you know, that's sort of what I'm talking about in this book, which is sort of going that next step, because really we talked about the homeostatic hunger with the obesity code, but mostly insulin, and trying to really, try and point out the deficiencies of this sort of calorie obsessed sort of focus, right? And
Well,
it's
there's
pretty
also this
horrible.
fear of hunger. Like people are like, if I don't eat lunch, I'll get hungry. Like
Yeah,
that's gonna like I'll probably die if by 4 o'clock if I don't eat it noon, right? And the
exactly.
conditioning and like when you were saying that, the first thing I thought of was like growing up, I never went to the movies and didn't have popcorn or some soda or something. Now, like we go to the
Yeah.
movies, it's not even a thing for me. But I look around and it's amazing. Like anyone goes to the movies, watch before the movie starts. Half the people will eat their entire popcorn, then they go, "We'll give you a free refill. You paid like $30 for the popcorn anyways, but we'll give you a free refill." So they go, "Oh, if I'm getting a free refill, I'm eating it all, so I get another." It's like the buffet mindset, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you don't see those buffets, those all you can eats in other countries. So if it's not available, then you don't do it. Or if it's frowned upon, then you don't do it. So, but it wasn't the individual. You can put any individual, like you can put any individual into what I call the obesogenic environment of the United States. And we've done that because you can study any it's sad, but every immigrant group, they come in and their obesity rate is super low. Within 2 generations, it's super high. It's the same, right? Whether they're from Nigeria or Japan or China or, you know, South America, Central, it doesn't even matter. You take them all, and they've studied this, right? They look at the immigrants, they're all thin. 2 generations later, they're all fat, right? They're the same as the Americans. Why? Because they've grown up here and they're getting that popcorn that they ate, not because they're hungry, but they've been conditioned, right? By advertising, by all this stuff to eat it, right? And I think that it's sad because, and this is what I really love about what Robert F. Kennedy is doing, is that he's trying to look outside the box sort of thing. Because if you think about smoking, smoking cessation, obviously very important fact. But one of the very smart things they did was they banned tobacco advertising to make it, so smoking was cool. But once you took away all the advertising, it's a little bit just a bit of a waste of money and sort of disgusting, right? Because now you can't smoke here, you can't smoke there. If you like go outside, go outside. You're like, banished. If you want to smoke, you're banished, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it went from the coolest thing to, oh, it's sort of on the outs, right? And you look at smoking rates, they've plummeted, right? Because you stopped the advertising, you made the environment. So people are exactly the same, but you had 50% of people smoking to, like, I don't know, 17 or 16% now. Why? It's all perception, it's all advertising. Now you take the same thing, you look at how much money, like, these ultra processed food companies are spending on advertising, and they're advertising to children, just like Joe Camel did, right? That's the problem. They're hooking them in. They're all the fast foods, the ultra processed foods. Why? Because they make money. They're not
And we saw
advertising
the same
salmon.
thing, Jason, during the lockdowns. Like all these guys I'm talking to, they're gaining weight. I'm like, why? And they go, well, I just lock myself in my house and I eat cereal like I did when I was in the Saturday morning cartoons. It brings back that easy time
Yeah,
was easy, and they started eating the ultra processed food. Sales went through the roof at the same time. And if you look at
yeah,
countries, like the only country who got it was El Salvador. I saw these ads that were running saying, hey, look, start exercising, drinking water, to take it, don't eat this crappy food, and you're going to do better. Like, and it was right, they were right in what they were saying. But no, public health in
yeah,
America never mentioned that once, and we knew who was
yeah,
dying,
yeah,
the
yeah. And
metabolically
and it's
sick.
so important because if you can say, okay, let's ban advertising of fast foods to children, that's going to make a huge difference in your health. And people say, oh, you can't do that. Why? Because, like, do we not love our kids enough? Like, do we not love our children enough to make these sort of decisions? Yes, it's going to cost you money. Yes, they're not going to advertise. Tobacco companies said the same thing. People are like, oh, we're going to go out of business. It's like, no, you'll just find other things to take your advertising to, right? But if we understand what the problem is, and this is what bothers me, is that if you look at what who pushes these people to focus on calories and stuff, it's always like Coca-Cola and all these companies that want you to focus on calories. Why? Because it basically reduces their culpability, excuses the obesity epidemic from that sort of sugar, refined carbohydrate, ultra processed foods. And it's not simply the carbohydrates, it's the way these foods are made. And I talk about in the new book. Textures are important. The advertising is important, just like smoking is smoking, but it went from cool to not cool to disgusting, and there that changed it, right? So if you take things like ultra processed foods and ban the advertising, they'll do a huge thing, because you're affecting the homeostatic hunger, because the hormones of ultra processed foods are designed to sort of circumvent that. You got the hedonic hunger, because you're trying to drive down this. If something's addictive, you don't want it easily available, right? That's the problem with alcohol. Not that it's super addictive, it's that it's widely available. Compared to cocaine, alcohol does much more damage, right? But cocaine is far more addictive. Why? But what's the difference is that alcohol is much more available. Food is the same thing. It's everywhere, right? And then you have the conditioned hunger, where you're conditioning these people to eat their Saturday morning cereal, eat their popcorn, eat their junk food, eat their, this. You need to snack all the
You
time.
have to have
All of this
dessert
stuff.
after every meal now. Like lunch, they're having
Yeah.
dessert after lunch, dessert after, and it's just like you see what we're doing and you go, man, we've gone off the rails.
Oh
We've gone
yeah,
off
I
the
remember
rails.
in the 70s. So it's funny because my parents were immigrants. So I had dessert, like, once a month sort of thing, right? It just wasn't anything. And I remember I went to one of these school trips. We had dessert after every dinner. I'm like, whoa, I'm like, this is great. That's what I thought, of course, at the
Yeah.
time, but it's not, right? If you keep thinking, and the other thing was that our desserts, Chinese desserts are terrible. They're like red bean soup, right? It sounds terrible, right? As a dessert, that's like the worst sounding dessert ever, right? But that was dessert. And fruit, right? Is always just fruit. So never anything processed. That's just not the way my immigrant parents were, right? Dessert was like, a papaya or something like that, right? That's your dessert. Some cherries, that's dessert. Not like a cake or cookies or anything, right? None of the ultra processed stuff. It's like, no wonder you take people from the 70s who grew up in the 70s who are thinking that fruit is dessert, like a couple slices of watermelon. Like, remember the 70s, right? Picnics and stuff. Dessert was that slice
Yeah,
of
watermelon,
watermelon.
pineapple. Like, wow, we got
Yeah.
pineapple or a mango or something, right?
Yeah, that was very exotic, but it was like, yeah, that was dessert. Like we cut up a bit of watermelon and you had to slow down to eat them because they had all these seeds in them, right? So the whole thing is that you had to slow down. Your absorption's not going like this. You're getting a slow rise. So yes, maybe you're getting a bit of sugar there, but you're getting it from a natural source and so on, which is different because the way that artificial sugars, artificial foods are, they spike your dopamine, spike your sugar, and all this stuff. So there's the point is that there's so much in nutrition about weight gain, weight loss that is so much more than calories. It always blows my mind how crazy it is that most professionals, experts just think it's all about calories and how do you eat less calories. It's like, oh gosh. I just keep thinking you've missed so many things. All the stuff about the hormones, the homeostatic hunger, you miss everything to do with emotional hungers, addiction, ultra processed foods, and you've missed all the points about the social influence, modeling, social modeling, that kind of thing. You've missed all of these things. It's all in the literature, right? How important these things actually are.
Well, I think what
Crazy.
happens in medicine a lot of times, like, when you look back, like I just interviewed someone, she goes, look at these studies from the 70s saying fasting, more of a ketogenic diet, low carb, cutting out processed, their mood and depression, everything got better. But then what happens, all these drugs came out for depression. They go, just take the drug. Same thing with diabetes management. When you go back to Osler and these guys in the 1800s, they didn't have insulin yet. So if you had type 1, you're going
Yeah.
to die anyways. But type 2,
Yeah.
they would say, let's cut their carbs until they stop peeing out sugar. And then that's their diet from now
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And they go,
Yeah.
you get insulin, they go, oh, forget all that stuff. Let's just do this. And then you're crazy when you say, wait, this is how they did it before we had all these drugs. Why don't we just not throw the drugs at everyone?
Yeah.
And now we're having things with mood, you know, dementia, Parkinson's. You go, because I think we've given up as a society. That's the other thing with it. All these, you look at the relationship between Parkinson's and diabetes or Alzheimer's disease and diabetes. You start looking at this and they're
Mhm.
like, well, mom's 70 years old. Just let her eat what she wants. Instead of saying, hey, why don't we
Yeah.
try to intervene and see what we can do?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it also has been, I think medicine has really been corrupted by the pharmaceuticals and who's paying for all this stuff. Like you go to any major conference, so whether you're talking American Society of Hypertension, American Society of what is it, ACC, the cardiology, or ASCO, the oncology one, right? That's big, big, big money there, right? And all of this money has been pumped into all these FDA people, right? So they're all like, and all the continuing medical education in medical schools, you're basically taught by the drug company. And so the drug companies, it's just like the whole thing is what I think is hilarious, if it wasn't so sad, is if you look at the American Diabetes Association guidelines, just I think this year or last year, they said, oh, weight's actually really important for the management of type 2 diabetes. And it's like, what the like that's been obvious for like 50 years, the link between obesity and type 2 diabetes. Why didn't you care about weight until last year? Why? Because there was no drug that affected weight in a good way. Now you've got all these Eli Lillies and Novos, and I don't have anything against the drugs, but now that they're pushing this agenda, all the doctors are talking about weight. It's like, okay, as a medical societies, you guys are completely corrupted by all this money because it's like whatever drug you have is what you push. You have a drug for lowering LDL cholesterol. Hey, guess what? That's what you push. How about HDL and triglycerides? Because we know that that's a more important factor than LDL. well, there's no drug. So nobody
It's
talks about
incredible.
it.
I mean, the incredible. I mean,
Crazy.
this, and it struck me because I'm looking at this going, that's weird. There was 5 people attacking you online saying, "Oh, Jason Fung done fast. You don't have to do that. Here's a drug that can do all this stuff," and like it's a waste of time. You don't have to change your lifestyle. You get, and I'm like, now all of those guys are saying, "Hey, for $99 a month, we'll give you this injection." You know what I mean? And you go, and you don't have to change anything. You're like, oh, good luck with that. We know the long term consequences, but it's amazing. But these guys were all shills, and someone called one of them out actually, and they deleted all their posts because they said the guy says I didn't take a dime from pharma, and they go, are you taking money from this firm that represents pharma? And they go, delete, 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 right? And you go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
because they have PR firms that are paying. It's just money laundering is all it is, right? Because I'm not getting paid
Yeah.
directly from them. It's like the drug dealer said, I didn't sell the drugs. It was that guy down there. But yeah, but you gave him the drugs and he's giving you the money back, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
crazy how it,
It's
how it all
crazy.
works. And
And
you
and
called
and
it out for a long time. I'm like, oh,
oh, for a long
with all
time.
the
Yeah,
cancer
it's been.
stuff and all the craziness we saw there, like all their documentation was fudged. You go, oh, geez.
Well, the thing is that it's like, how can you take something that's so obvious, like weight and type 2 diabetes, and not even care about it until like a year ago? And only because there's an effective drug for that now, right? Obviously, their whole agenda is being set, whether it's in weight loss, diabetes, or cardiology, like statins and stuff, right? The whole agenda is set by the drug company because that's who they pay. They pay all the university doctors, they pay all the researchers, they pay them to give these talks. There's dinners that drive me crazy because it's like, you shouldn't be doing that,
And those
but
doctors are
nobody
even
care.
like, they're even saying, well, I didn't even have to do anything. This is easy money. They just give me the slides. I don't even have to think.
Yeah,
I
I
just go
know.
and
It's
read what they tell
crazy.
me to say. And you go, well, that doesn't sound very smart, does it?
Yeah. And
Because
all
the
the
other thing they said, the
university.
other one that came out, remember the drugs that was you pee out the extra sugar, and they go, "Oh yeah, this is a miracle for cardiology because it decreases cardiac risk." You go, "What's it doing? It's lowering insulin, it's raising LDL cholesterol, but it's lowering
I
cardiac
know.
risk." Like, where's the you asked? I asked a cardiologist who gave one of the talks, and he got so unhappy with me. I'll talk to you after.
Oh,
I'll talk to you after.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, that the whole thing, and again, I'm not against drugs because I prescribe a lot of drugs, and
totally,
certain people
yeah,
will
yeah.
need drugs. But the thing that I find funny is that that drug class, the SGLT2s, which you pee out the sugar, right? It's like, so they're like, wow, it's amazing. You get cardio protection, right, for heart failure. You get renal protection. I wonder why. So there's all these doctors going, we're looking into the mechanism. I'm like, oh God, you guys are like crazy stupid, right? It's like you're lowering insulin. That's it, right? You
Yeah,
lower
you're lowering
insulin.
insulin
What
levels. Yeah.
drugs prior to this era lower insulin? Zero. Now you've got SGLT2s, which lower insulin, and GLP-1s. They cause nausea. They make you eat less. They lower insulin. They lower insulin by a lot, right? And people are saying, well, we don't know how these things protect. It's like it's you're lowering insulin. People had high insulins, abnormally high insulins, and you put them back
Oh, and guess
down.
what?
Like,
Fasting does the same thing, and,
ah,
and doing a ketogenic diet
yeah,
does the same thing. And you go, this is an exercise, and these kind of things. Watch your stress, get your sleep, all these other factors we've been talking about forever.
I
And
know.
so, but thank you, man. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for
No,
joining
no
me, coming in.
problem. Thanks.
So I have to ask you, Jason, before we close up and let people know about your new book and where to find you and everything. What's life's best medicine for you now, man? After all these years, like, what do you go, kids? This is what really matters. This is the important stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing, I mean, there's not one, obviously, there's a lot. But I think that what's really important, and I reflected on this a little bit in during COVID, is really finding something that you believe in, like something that's bigger than yourself, right? Because people sometimes they retire and they say, I'm going to play golf and tennis, right? And that's fine. I don't play golf, but I like tennis. And it's fine. I like to read, I like to play tennis, but it's not bigger than yourself, right? You're not doing anything other than your own pleasure. And everybody thinks that that's what's going to make you happy. No, that won't make you happy. What makes people happy is to have some kind of purpose bigger than themselves. So whether it's you going to Guatemala and helping other people, for me, it's about trying to help people, through online videos and talking about what, we just talked about, because people come up to me sometimes and they say, oh, thank you for what you've done. And so, I really feel good because it's like, okay, these people were able to reverse their type 2 diabetes And even though they had been seeing specialists, they couldn't do that. It wasn't until they saw my YouTube video that they did that, right? So I'm helping them. But it's something that I believe in, which is helping people, and it's bigger than myself. Or whether it's joining a board, so I'm actually on the board of directors of my school. So again, I'm helping something that's bigger than myself. So it's your purpose in life, right? And it's like at some point when you retreat out of that purpose in your life, I think that's where people get lost. And I think that's what happened during COVID, of course. Everything shut down. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't be part of anything bigger than your circle, right? So that's where there was a ton of depression because of the isolation, but I think also that loss of purpose of doing something which is good. So sometimes maybe it's for your family, for your friends, cooking good meals, having get-togethers and stuff. Whatever it is, it's finding your place within that sort of bigger world, what you're going to do to make this world sort of better, right? If you simply focus on yourself and say, what do I like to do? I'm going to do more of it. Well, I don't think you'll be happy in the end. I think, the happiest people are those people who are very altruistic, who give to others. Why? Because they derive all that pleasure from that. And that's a more sort of real thing than those people who just made a lot of money. Because again, that's a selfish thing. So you see all these actually billionaires who now try to do a lot of philanthropy because they realize that they made their billions, but that's not making them happy. They're actually quite
Mm.
unhappy because there's always somebody who makes more billions than you.
Yeah,
But
it's
then
true.
what they realize is that what makes me happy is to take on whatever cause it is that they're going to take on, right? So you see
Yeah, that's
it
awesome
all over the
advice, man.
place. Yeah.
That is so important. Like
So
that, people listening, this is critically important stuff. Like, look at it. It's not just about your happiness. I'm going to do this and at someone else's expense, and just be saying how can I contribute back. I think that's ultimately, just losing my mom. Those are things like how many lives did she impact? Like cutting
yeah,
hair and like being their counselor of people and helping them do stuff. And so many people have reached out to me and said, "Man, your mom really impacted my life. Like changed my life. I was like a orphan here, and she came in and she helped me and taught my brothers what to do and everything. Moving in from a different country, things like that. And you go, man, that's what really matters. It's not like,
yeah,
wow, she was the best tennis player. Like, okay, like what
yeah, yeah,
you won
yeah,
a lot of,
and
you beat your kids in tennis.
yeah, or made it to your local whatever whatever. I mean, it's not to downplay that. I mean, it's a balance, right? But
Yeah,
it's like if
totally.
if you retire and all you do is hang out and do the stuff for yourself, well, I think it's a little bit unfulfilling in the end. And I can't remember, I read a book about altruism one time. And he says that it's actually funny because you think that they're very selfless, but because they get so much satisfaction and life purpose from this altruism, they're doing it too for themselves, which is fine, right?
Yeah, and
It's
even
but it's a
if you're
basic,
a tennis pro, you go, let me teach this
yeah,
kid how to play tennis. Let me teach this guy how
yeah,
to play, and you're like
yeah.
impacting someone else's life to make them
Yeah, if you're a
have more
basketball
enjoyment,
player,
right?
you go into the community and you start having camps for like underprivileged kids. Why?
Yeah, yeah,
Because it makes you feel good, right?
yeah.
Because it makes you feel good. And so
And
you're
that
doing
lowers all
it.
your stress hormones and your
Yeah.
cortisol and all this stuff we're fighting against too. So doing and that's the thing is guys like you, how much free content have you put out all this time? And then I remember you said, hey, for years I've been talking about green tea. This is a good green tea if you like it. Then people say, oh my gosh, look, you're sold out. It's like that's something I
Yeah.
believe in,
Yeah.
and I want to help this. I like this company. I want because I do it too. It's like, hey, I like these guys and they're doing good work, and let's help them out a little bit.
Yeah.
But
That was hilarious because it's like I've been talking about green tea forever. And it's like you don't have to buy that green tea that I said was good. You can buy any green tea you want. And I said that. I said you can go to Costco and get your
yeah,
green tea
totally.
there.
I know.
I
That's
don't
why it's so
really care.
amazing.
It's
And it's
like,
not like
okay,
you're saying, "Hey,
whatever.
go drink soda now." You go, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
Jason. You've been telling us not to drink soda all these years. Now you're telling us to drink soda because you're getting a commission, right?" So
Yeah.
it
Or this
is,
proprietary blend of supplements and stuff, right? That's where
yeah.
everybody makes their money, right? With their proprietary blend of supplements. And it's like, no, it's like just drink green tea. And it's like, okay, well, people are gonna do whatever they
Or
want to
don't
do,
do it,
but
or do
it's
whatever
like,
you want to do, or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah,
So, Jason,
yeah.
how do people track you down?
Yeah, you can go to my on X, it's Dr. Jason Fung, that's Dr. Jason Fung, or YouTube, I have a lot of content there as well. So either of those places is great.
And what's the name of your? Do you have a name for your new book that's coming out?
It'll be called the hunger code. So,
Yeah,
because it's
of
really
course.
it's about the hunger, which is really, I wanted to call it the Obesity Code Part Two, but they said, well, it's really a book about hunger. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I think
In
you've got
fact,
every code out there except the cholesterol code.
yeah, the cholesterol, I don't talk a lot about that, although a lot of people talk about it, but I don't know. I sort of have very strong feelings about certain things, sort of more related to sort of obesity, hunger, because that's sort of more type 2 diabetes, which is sort of the area that I'm really specifically focused on, really. Cholesterol, I think, is crazy, but I just don't talk about it too much.
Yeah,
But
and
I
you look
agree
at
with you.
that and you realize like diabetes, and when you look at all the risks of everything, diabetes is at the top, right? Blindness, dialysis, everything we do, and you go, how does no
God,
one
it's
really talk about that? I mean,
yeah,
in a
that's the whole
constructive way.
thing with the I sent out on Twitter one time this New England Journal of Medicine article that came out, I think, in March of 2025. And they took 5 risk factors, and they looked at like how impactful it is on cardiovascular health, heart attacks, and strokes. And of course, smoking was way up there, right? And diabetes was way up there. And cholesterol made almost
It's
zero
way at the bottom.
difference. It was way at the bottom, almost zero difference. And there's this other study that said if you have, low cholesterol, you actually live longer and stuff. So there's all this data. So it may be important for certain populations. So I'm not doubting that. Same
Yeah.
with statins. It may be important for
Well,
certain
especially if you're diabetic,
populations.
right? If you're diabetic,
Yeah.
then it's an issue.
Yeah. And it's like, but the LDL cholesterol is almost irrelevant in all of these studies. And they're all New England Journal stuff, right? And then I see all these doctors, "Ah, it's so important. You can cure heart disease. You need to get your cholesterol to zero." I'm like, what are you reading? Because I'm reading the New England Journal of Medicine here. I'm not sure what you're reading, but what the hell, right? It's like I just don't get it sometimes, right?
I
And
think
it's
it's a
like,
parroting
God.
thing. Someone says something and they go, "Well, if he said it has to be true, it has to be true." And like,
Oh, I
that's
think
the
it's
history of medicine. We've
I
always done
think
stuff, and you
it's
go, "Why are we doing this?"
yeah, well, I think it's like, there's another drug, this injection, right, which drives your cholesterol down. All of a sudden, all these doctors are all in the circuit, right? They're
Yeah.
very famous doctors at all these universities. You don't understand they're getting a lot of money from this, but they're giving talks about why you have to get the cholesterol down, why you have to get it. And it's like, well, you're so influenced by that advertising that you think that cholesterol is the be all and end all, but it's not. It's actually very, very irrelevant to most of the things. So anyway, that's a different.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the things we look at. We just start doing stuff, and everyone just does it. Go, everyone's doing it, so it's got to be right. Like I'm jumping
Yeah,
off the cliff too because everyone else is jumping off the cliff. Instead of
yeah,
saying, "Wait a minute," like when you're a deeper thinker and you go, "Wait a minute, does this make sense? What am I seeing clinically?" And that you start comparing these to some of these studies, and you go, "Man, this is crazy." So, Jason, man, thank you so much. Thanks again for everything you do, and I'm really excited to get this one out. We'll get my listeners to if there's one person who doesn't know about you, I'd be surprised. But thank you again for the influence you've had on me and Tro and Brett Sure, all these people out there. I remember just meeting you in San Diego, and we're all like, "Oh my gosh,
that
it's
was
Jason
funny.
Fung. It's Jason Fung. Oh my gosh!" And you were so cool to us. So thank you for all you're doing. And anything you come out with, let us know, and we'll get you on both podcasts to talk about. We'll get you on Low Carb MD and talk about this too, that your new book coming out because we're excited
Yeah, for
about it.
sure, for sure.
So
All right, good
awesome.
to
Have a
talk to
great
you,
weekend.
Brian.
Thanks for taking time, man. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Bye bye.
bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day. And thank you for listening. And thank you for your support.